Are we gonna get one tonight, boys?
What is going on, everybody? This is Mike Goldstein, Stickers of the C.A.N Report. Nozzle Tov, everybody. I have a great guest. Man, it's fully involved in this podcast this evening. Mark von Appen. I am very, very, very happy to have you here. Thank you so much for being on the C.A.N Report.
Thanks for having me on, man. It's great to meet you.
Yeah. We were talking early before we started, and we didn't really get to meet. But I watched your presentation in Hooksett, New Hampshire. This was a few years ago. So almost 3 years ago, actually, I think. And I loved it. And I had been following you for quite some time before that. And then we actually got to meet in person at FDIC. And we got to talk, and here we are. And I'm really excited to have you here.
I'm excited to be here. Thank you.
Yes, sir. So before we start, I'd like to give a shout out to my sponsors, Engine House Designs, LLC. Cody Hill, he is a working firefighter out of Memphis, Tennessee. He actually makes my hats. He makes flags, jackets, chore coats, whatever you need for your union, your department, your own business. He can do it for you. He's very easy to work with. And he just does a great job, and he loves doing it. And also want to give a shout out to Industrial Protection Services out of New England. If you're needing hoses, you're needing nozzles, and you need your packs checked, you need to make sure that everything is in working order, check out Industrial Protection Services. They are our leading provider of goods and firefighter services in the New England area. So with that being said, we're starting it right off with Mark von Appen. I have your bio up here. I'm going to read that real quick. Mark is a fire service professional and leadership speaker focused on operational integrity, moral courage, and people-first decision-making in high-stakes environments. Drawing from real-world experience, he challenges leaders to think beyond rank and policy and instead focus on the responsibility they carry to their people. Mark's message centers on practical, actionable leadership at the company and chief officer level, where culture is truly shaped. He speaks on accountability without ego, discipline without arrogance, and the idea that trust is built through consistent action under pressure. His philosophy aligns with what he calls the Big Four: do your job, treat people right, give all-out effort, and maintain an all-in attitude. Known for his direct and relatable style, Mark addresses the realities firefighters face every day: ethical gray areas, top-down pressure, burnout, and the challenge of leading peers. He emphasizes that respect drives modeling builds admiration, and admiration ultimately drives cultural change within organizations. Mark is available for department trainings, leadership workshops, and conferences. And I just lost it again. That's why we have.
I think that's it. That's enough.
That's enough. All right.
Yeah,
that's why we have Ed in there too. But man, cool. We're gonna get right out of that bio. It was excruciating. I know people don't like to talk about themselves, but is there anything you want to add to that for your bio, or anything else you want people to know about you?
Just that, it doesn't really mention anything about my fire service. It says I was a fire service professional, but I worked for 25 and a half years in the fire service and loved it, and retired as a company officer and worked for a really great department, City of Palo Alto Fire Department in Northern California, and loved the job, every single day. Some of what I talk about when we discuss leadership in the program that I do is about lessons that I learned, things that I learned the hard way, mistakes that I made, and some of the great people that really helped shape and influence me in how I see leadership.
I remember from your presentation, you talked about how you started and how you're a rookie, your first mopping experience at the firehouse, and how to do chores, and just how to literally for your officer to actually give you the correct information of how to do just that. And then from doing chores at the firehouse to your first time bringing a hose line into your first structure fire. And just the experience of just the communication side of things, of how things can get lost so quickly with that. And can you, for people who haven't been in your presentation yet, can you hit on some of that?
Well, I mean, You know how excited you are when you show up for your first day at work, and I was like a lot of people where I was, it took me a long time to get the job, and I was very excited to show up for my first day, and I had this, I had elevated, what my first company officer interaction was going to be like to actually being kind of like, meeting some sort of a deity, or when you are a kid and go to the mall and get your picture taken with Santa Claus. It was like something like huge like that, and just being a little bit underwhelmed by how seriously I felt that they took maybe my notions of what they needed to be like. When I first met them, just their seeming lack of interest in me, and setting me on the right path. Not that they didn't necessarily, maybe they thought that they were, but I just didn't feel like I felt like I needed more. My first company officer was a good guy, but they just, sometimes, you have to you walk that line sometimes of being, serious or taking yourself too seriously.
Hmm.
And I think that he kind of like took himself a little bit um maybe lighter than I thought he should have. But anyway, didn't get a whole lot of direction and stuff, and I was sort of figuring things out on my own, stumbling through the first couple of months of my first assignment, and then went to my first fire and kind of did just whatever I felt like doing, and launched into an attic fire by myself while my company officers completing his 360 walk around, and just the lessons that I learned from that, just everything went okay, but it could have gone a lot better had I gotten some clear direction on my first day at work, or over my first couple months. And I always make the point that you can't hold someone to a standard that you've never established, and so I'm big on making sure that we clearly communicate expectations, because that's the basis of sound operations is clear communications. So that's a lot of what I talk about in my program, and I talk about my first day. I mean, I end up making a lot of fun of myself because it's easy to do, but it's just, you're so excited and you want to do right, but when you're not being told what to do, you're just gonna, in the lack of clear direction, you're gonna take action yourself. And sometimes that's not always the right thing to do. Luckily, in my case, it worked out okay. It was pretty straightforward, but yeah. So
So, but you also came from an athletic background as well, correct?
mhm. Yeah.
And yeah, go
Go
ahead,
ahead.
please.
No,
How does
I
that tie
my
into
dad was.
everything?
Yeah, I mean, so the foundation of the where I based what I thought the fire service was going to be like was based on growing up the son of a football coach, and my dad, when I was young, coached for the San Francisco 49ers organization, and they won 2 Super Bowls. And I used to go to training camp with him and work on the sidelines at football games and stuff. And I saw what great leadership looked like, and I saw what great coaching looked like, and I
Mm.
saw what a true meritocracy looked like, and that's what I thought the fire service was going to very closely resemble when I got into it. And I very quickly found out that it really wasn't that way. It was very competitive to get into the fire service, but once you got in, it was kind of like a lot of people that were um, more interested in what they were doing on their days off and things like that. And I sort of gravitated towards people that were into the job as I went and started taking classes outside my department and seeing that there was a whole language that people spoke that I didn't understand, and they were using tools in ways that I had never seen. I mean, it was this whole weird thing, and then there was a captain that I actually worked with who turned me on to some of this stuff, and I sat next to him at some of these classes, and when they would say things, they would use jargon that I didn't understand. I go, "What are they talking about?" He goes, "Oh, that means this, or that means that." I go, "How do you know this?" And he goes, "Well, I study, and I read, and I go take classes outside the department." So, yeah, so having that background in athletics, and being a part of a family that was very team oriented, and then being involved in athletics myself, as a adolescent and a teenager, and then into college a little bit. I was very into the team dynamic, and I found that to be not sorely lacking in the fire service, but certainly it left something to be desired, in my opinion. And that was something that really drove me to try to, bring that dynamic into um, our department out of frustration of things that I experienced and acting out and sometimes not always doing the right thing.
What
So,
was your first outside training that you ever been a part of?
oh gosh, I guess I'm trying to think. I think it was the first big training that I went to was back when the rapid intervention, and it was in the early 2000s. Rapid intervention and firefighter survival were kind of sweeping the nation, and it was. I mean, there's still a movement towards that now, but it's much more. The trend now is much more towards civilian rescue and that sort of
Hmm.
thing, which is really cool, I think. But yeah, I went and took a class called Nobody Gets Left Behind here in California, and it was at the old Fort Ord Army Base in Monterey, California. And I went down there. It was like a 2 day class, 2 days, 16 hour. Like I think we had like 2 hours of classroom, and that was all hands on. And I was blown away by the knowledge base of the instructors and how ill prepared I felt I was for the job. Just coming out of the you know going to an academy and then just sort of existing in my department and sort of working the shifts and kind of doing whatever and um just kind of living the non-probationary firefighter life, wearing the t-shirts and just doing whatever and going to chili cook-offs and that kind of thing. And I went, and like I said, I went to this class and I couldn't believe like how much these guys knew
Mm.
and how much I didn't. And then the evolutions that we went through really tested us. And then in some of the evolutions that we performed, we weren't successful. Like we couldn't rescue the firefighter that we were trying to rescue. And they're like, oh no, we got to call it. We have to evacuate. We have to, whatever. We have to abandon the structure because it's going to collapse. And I'm like, well, wait, we didn't win. Like I thought every scenario we're supposed to win, and they're like, no, you're not going to win them all. And it was humbling to me in a way that I had never been humbled before. Like my skill set wasn't where I needed to be or where I wanted to be. I wasn't who I thought I was, and so I started hanging out with these guys. I started, the instructors were great. They give us their contact information, and I just started showing up every time there was a class. I'd show up and just hang out and float around and listen. And then when they finally decided that I wasn't going to go away, they started giving me jobs and responsibility and stuff. And I think first I was just kind of a gopher doing errands and stuff
I
like that.
I love that you're saying that right there because I literally been preaching that for a little bit. I wouldn't say preaching, but I've been talking about it. Right there is like when you. I think it's so important right there that like if you're not familiar with your skill level and tactics and not being your best and you don't have that in your area, but there's a training cadre or a conference or something that you love and you start going to religiously, keep up with that and
Mhm.
keep going, and they're going to see you and go, man, this guy Mark is still here, and
Yeah,
you're gonna be
he
like,
won't go away.
he won't go
We can't
away,
shake
and then
him.
right,
Mhm.
and then but like I've been telling people, like then you become like if you ask, like, hey, I want to be a part of this because I want to learn. Can you teach me? I can't imagine any instructor or anybody who's worth their weight in gold or salt is going to say, no, get away from us. We don't want to teach you anymore. But then you see somebody who is wanting to absorb all that information. And like you said right there, I became a gopher. And then you start moving up, you start building props. And then, they start giving you other responsibilities and you move into now, hey, well, we know you can do this. We know you can do that. We've seen your skill set improve. We want you to take over one of the classes and now teach one of these classes. That's that progress. It doesn't happen like that. It takes years for
Oh
them to
yeah.
gain that trust. And I
Mhm.
love that you're talking about that because that's what I love to hear is that people putting in the time. You're just not going to get the key to the city and be able to be part of these things. You have to put in that time and that commitment.
You absolutely have to pay your dues. You have to earn their trust. I mean, what they were really great about, was they would rotate you through, like, as they sort of saw that I was hungry, and didn't, and really wanted to learn and really wanted to invest, they would give you areas of responsibility to rotate between, you know, uh, the different disciplines, and you would learn as much as you could. You'd sit there and just watch and watch and watch, and you would help reset props, and you would do whatever it was, and you would just take it all in. And then at one point, I was at one station, and one of the instructors said, "Hey, you got this group. I'm going to take off for 20 minutes. You're going to teach them." And I'm like, "Ooh." And it was hard, but I got through it. I had some help. There were some other guys that were there too that kind of, coached me
Yeah.
along and stuff. But yeah, you gotta pay your dues. And I think that there's in our instant gratification society, people want to be subject matter experts and stuff, immediately, and it takes a long time to get there. I don't think I ever got there. In any realm of hands-on training where I was a master or a subject matter expert or anything like that. I mean, I got so I was okay at some stuff and I could teach some things. But yeah, I definitely latched onto this group of guys and was like, wow, these guys are amazing. And from that was where some of the writing started and that sort of thing. And that was how I got to appear at conferences and stuff was through that. But
Did
from
you
very
ever
humble
think
beginnings.
Did you ever think you see yourself doing what you're doing now? Like when you first started and you started realizing more about the fire service, was that ever an idea in your brain at all to be a writer and to be lecturing and to be traveling all over the place doing what you're doing now?
Oh, absolutely not. No, I was perfectly content to just live out my career very, and just, like a lot of people do, just show up for work and just do your thing and just have fun and cook dinner and run calls and just do cool firefighter stuff. But it was kind of a fortunate accident. Like I said, I had a captain who said, "Hey, I'm going to take this class down in Monterey. You should come with me." And all it was, what got me to go was that there was live fire. There was
Hmm.
a live fire component to it, and that was just sort of a little bit of a bait and switch that they did because the live fire component was very small. It was maybe 15 minutes of the whole thing. But when I went down there, yeah, I think you need to have someone that's a catalyst for you to sort of maybe see some potential in you, maybe something that they saw in themselves or something where they say, "Hey, maybe this guy can be something more than just a paydays and 4 days guy. And maybe if I give him a little push and you know show him a skill or take him aside and teach him a couple things that I've learned, and then maybe push him in a direction, to go take a class or something like that." That's what did it for me was people actually saying, "Hey, go take this class and see that there's something else out there." Otherwise, if you don't fall in with that group of people, you may never see what else is out there. So I think when you have those people in your department that are excited about the job, we have a responsibility to share that in the right way with people, so that they can be excited about it and see that there is a really cool group of people that are good at their job, and they're not just guys that are dicks that just have a chip on their shoulder and think that they
Yeah.
walk around like they walk on water or something like that. I mean, they're actually most of them are really very humble people,
Yeah.
that just love the job and they want to share as much as they can. But a lot of times they're quiet because they get shut down in their own department and get clowned for loving the job. So
Yeah. I just had
um,
a discussion with a young lady out of the Pacific Northwest. And she was messaging me and she's like, how do you deal with the haters and the negative people that crap on you for loving the job so much and having that passion? And it was a great discussion to have with her because she's like, they take up so much of my mind space of trying to either just drown them out, or she's like, it literally takes me a lot of days to be able to get over a lot of that negativity. And like you said, this is people, some people are just negative and some people are just out there to be dicks. But in your time, I'm sure, even what you do now, do you deal with a lot of negative people? And if so, how do you deal with it?
uh, yeah, well, in short answer to your question, yes, I dealt with it, and I dealt with it in my own department. And I think some of it, I can't speak for everyone in everyone's case because I don't know their circumstances, but I think a lot of the negativity I brought upon myself. I think that I don't think that I always was mature enough to share ideas or share things with people in a way that was digestible for them. I think I came at people kind of hard, and I think I was, kind of one of those guys that was sort of a dick.
Mm,
And I think that with maturity, I think I lost some of that. Um, but it comes from frustration. You feel like it's you against the world. And as you were sharing that story about that that you know s- the person you're talking to in the Pacific Northwest, it's hard to hear that, and you want
mm.
to tell those people, just let it go and don't let it bother you. And those people are not thinking about you as much as you think that they are, and all that stuff. But you can't get out of your own head, and it becomes this echo chamber. And we've all been a part of it. But as I look back on my career after being retired now for almost 3 years, I wasted so much time worrying so much about like what other people thought. And there's a quote from Pat Riley in his book, The Winner Within, and it says, when you're doing something significant, the detractors don't matter. And that's what I think of when I hear things like what you just described,
Yeah.
that the girl in the PNW who's just frustrated and feels like she's got something to share, but she just feels like she's getting shut down, and it's in her head. And it's like, uh, the right people will hear your message. And the people that you know, can't hear it, won't hear it. And it doesn't matter who's delivering that message, they're going to shoot down whoever that is. So, when you're doing something that matters, the detractors don't matter. So, um, if I had any advice for anybody, and it's way easier said than done, and it's much easier for me to say,
Yeah.
being 3 years almost into retirement, to say, don't let it get to you. But they're always going to be there. It's always going to be in your head. But let it serve as fuel. Let it serve as, if you're pissed off about it, just work harder to prove them wrong,
That's my rocket
and if
fuel. That's what I've been calling,
Mhm.
man. It's been my rocket fuel, and then I love that you have that advice because it's legit. What I explained to her is the same thing. Is just for me, it's like I don't even know them. Like half the people that have come at me, they don't really know me. They don't know me, and I think that's the biggest part of it is that the haters aren't taking the time to actually know you, whether they're inside your department or they're on social media. They really don't know you. Your friends and your family know you. So for me, like if it's somebody that I know close that has a problem with me, then yeah, that's gonna be really hard for me to get over. But the deep reflection, it's like if someone in my department or someone outside of it that barely knows that person, that's when I take that deep look. And I was explaining to her is like, take that deep look and go, well, they don't even know who I am, and not taking the time to actually want to know me. So F them. That was
Right.
my short of it. Is really just F them. Like there's so many good people out there. Why waste your time on the small negative of it? And it's hard. Like you said, it's easier said than done, but it can take up a lot of mind space. And that's why I'm always talking to myself. My steering wheel is like my best therapist. Like I'm constantly driving and talking to myself all the time. And I think my family thinks I'm crazy because I know I walk around the house and I'll mumble to myself of things that's going on in my head. But usually it's because of those conversations. Like, why does this person think this about me? Why does this person think that? But then I'm over it. But that's like, it's just great to be able to have those conversations, remind myself why I'm doing what I'm doing, why you're doing what you're doing. And for my friend there in the PNW, just remember why you're doing the job, why you wanted to become a firefighter, why you wanted to help people. And that's what matters the most, is to get down to the basics of everything. It's why you wanted to apply to where you're at and why you want to do the job. That's what matters.
Well, I think what helps too is finding those wayward souls like you or like me or whoever, and you find that a lot of those people that are out there teaching or doing whatever they're doing outside their department, that's how they find their joy, and that's how they find their people, is
Hmm.
is by going out there and saying, "Oh, I was frustrated in my department too, and I have these detractors in my department too." And that's why I encourage people to join fools groups, or
Mm.
join whatever local training group you've got, and try to become a part of those things, because that is that's your outlet, that's your creative outlet, so you can share what you love about the job with those people who want to be there. Um, yeah, and that's what I think is the hard thing is, I get around and I go and I speak on leadership and different parts of the country, and there's dozens, if not hundreds, of people that could do the exact same thing I'm doing in that area who have a different spin on leadership than I do, but it's simply because I'm not from that area, and that's what the problem is. I mean, there's great leaders and great voices in the fire service as good as any time in history, but we can't see what's right in front of us a lot of the time. And
Yeah,
that's what's frustrating. So, if you're feeling that way, just get out and go take classes somewhere and just be that kind of quiet person that just sits there and learns, and eventually some people will start talking to you and you'll make friends in those circles, and you'll have a great another support network, outside of your department. Because I mean,
yeah.
as much as we focus on the people that we feel are you know speaking ill of us, there's more people that believe in you than don't.
Absolutely,
So
100%. And like you said, where they go out to your training groups outside your training, but you also have to be careful because those are just band-aids because you still have to go home.
mhm.
You can't live in the conference world your entire career. You got to eventually go home and deal with those issues and work with them. So, um,
Right.
but like as I was explaining to her, and you actually hitting on that, is now you have built that network. You built, as a lot of people have been calling out, your tribe, and it's a select few that you can definitely relate to. And when you're feeling down on yourself and you're having these issues and you don't know how to, because your spouses are only going to understand a small part of it, and
Yeah, you
then
wear them out. I
you
mean
do, you wear them
I mean,
out
my
all
poor
the
wife, I
time.
mean, I wore her out with that stuff, but I guess, what it starts to happen is as you start to grow up, and in my case, I think I started to grow up by going out and seeing what was outside the department and realizing that everybody was experiencing a lot of the same frustrations that
Hmm.
I was. I had some time to think about it and had a way of I was able to adjust my delivery system so that instead of coming at people all hard and saying, "Hey, we need to do this because if we don't do this right, the job's very serious and you could die." Well, great, dude. Nobody wants to hear that. You know what I mean? And it's while it's true, nobody wants to hear it. But what you start saying is, you know, once people know how excited you are about the job, and you maybe calm down a little bit with it, and you say, "Hey, can I show you something that I learned from somebody that does this a lot, and this will make your life easier. Watch this." And when you put it to them that way, then they see a different side of Mark or Mike or whoever it is who is super ate up for the job. Because when people are super excited about the job, it can be intimidating for other people. And that's part of it
Yeah,
too, is it's like, oh, this guy thinks he knows something. Or no, I mean, yeah, I learned a couple
yeah,
things, but I'm perfectly willing to share those things. And I think once you approach it from the standpoint of, hey, let's share ideas. Hey, I'm not coming at you from, being up on a pedestal and talking down to you. We're on the same plane. You know, I I wasn't born knowing this stuff either, but I'm excited about it. Can I share what I'm excited about with you? When you start doing it that way, that's when people get to know you for who you really are as opposed to who they think you are, And
yeah.
so once that starts to get out, then that momentum starts to build where it's like, oh, okay, Mark isn't as big of a dick as I thought he was, or maybe he is. I don't know, but you know what I mean. It's like
Yeah,
at
but
least you're starting to build those bridges rather than burn them.
yeah, and
Because I was big on burning bridges,
it's a
early on.
delivery method for sure. And I love that you hit on that. But it really is, and giving those people that buy-in. And as I was explaining to her again, is that people will feel intimidated. They might even feel embarrassed because you're more passionate or you might know more than them. And you also have to, again, that delivery is just don't tell them how much you know, what you did, but involve them in those trainings. Like, man, I got something really exciting. Can we do it together? Or,
Right.
can I tell you about what I did instead of just blurting it all out and having diarrhea of the mouth about what you just did? But maybe like let them build up to you and ask those questions. And if nobody wants to hear it, it just obviously you have to read the room and go, okay, they don't want to hear from me right now, unfortunately.
Well, but where we're getting to is the root of everything is trust, right?
Yeah.
And so when they trust you, that you're not going to judge them for not being, as into the job as you are, and vice versa. I don't judge you for not being excited about it, and you shouldn't judge me for being excited about it. I mean, I don't care that you're into golf and that's all you want to talk about, but at a certain point we have to be good at our job. So like let's work on this for a little bit, and then and I'll share with you what I know from a not from a place of judgment, from a place of let's elevate everybody's standard. Then you create that trust because
Yeah.
it's got to be teaching and sharing your passion without judgment. And I think that people feel like when you're out there and you're excited about the job, you're judging people. And to some extent, we do. I mean, how much shit talking do we do about people that aren't into the job?
Oh my
It's
God.
like,
Like I have to control myself. I usually like when I talk about like when I get to talk to people like you and all the amazing people I've actually got to come in contact with, and I'll talk to somebody around my area, go, "Hey, I just talked to Brian Brush," and they'd be like, "Who's that?" And at first I'm like,
what do you
how
mean
do
you
you
don't
not know?
know? Yeah, who's that?
Seriously,
Yeah,
like, and that's
exactly.
my reaction. Like, how do you not know that? And
Hmm.
then I go, you know what? That it's okay. So I'll word it the other way. Do you know the firefighter rescue survey? Yeah,
Hmm.
that's him. Oh,
Right.
gotcha. Okay. So, they know his work, but they don't know the name. And that's okay because we're fully immersed in it. And, not everybody lives and breathes it like we do. And I actually do like that very much because then I get to teach. I get to like
Hmm.
show them something new. And it's how you deliver. Oh, you don't know about this? Can I show you? Like I always ask, can I show you? Oh yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Okay, cool. And then we literally have now it's literally you just document that in your training books. We just had a training session. And that's
Yep.
what's really cool about that because you didn't force it upon them. You had a table talk conversation, and then they're like, "Yeah, I didn't know about that. Cool. Can I tell you?" And then like the excitement is contagious, right? That's
Right.
infectious. So
Right.
I love being able to work those things in and realize that not everybody is going to know every person's name in this world that we love so much.
I mean, you know it. I mean, I go to FDIC and there's still people that I'm like, oh, that's that person that does that. Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, I didn't know that. It's like, and I've been going there for 10 years.
Yeah.
Because I mean, it's just you just kind of operate in your own little world and stuff like that, and just I mean, it's nobody's fault. I mean, we're just not we're just not real good at. I mean, as much as information is available to us, we're just not really that good at sharing it. And so, but there's so much out there, and there's just so many different ways to go, and I guess it's our job to create that trust and share that passion in a way that,
Yeah.
like I said, is digestible for people, so that they
Yeah.
don't get you know scared off by our enthusiasm, because that's easy to do. You can do that to people.
Yes, sir. So now I want to focus on fully involved. So, how did you come up with this whole basis of fully involved?
Um, well, we talked a little bit earlier about my background, other things that I saw growing up, and so a lot of those things were sort of in there. And but I didn't know how to articulate them, and I had some conversations with my dad as I was trying to, the old football coach, when I was trying to figure out who I wanted to be, as I was trying to get into a leadership position in my department and testing for captain, and not being successful the first test that I took. I failed the first test that I took because, out of arrogance, I thought I could just go in and just take
Mm,
the test and not really study, and I thought that I had enough hands-on training and skills from riding in the captain's seat for 5 years before I got promoted, that I could just go in there and basically wing the test, and I I didn't pass. So that was very humbling. So I made it my life's mission to study for the next one, and hard. But through that process, I went through had a lot of conversations with my dad, and that's where some of the ideas came from. And then when I got one of my first captain's assignments, I worked at one of our bigger stations where we had 9 people as opposed to just like a single engine house and stuff. We have 9, 8, 8 people. So we had a engine, a rescue company, and a medic unit there. And where the whole Big Four thing came from, and how that got worded came from just, watching, um, the people there, and their enthusiasm and their work ethic, and that's where that whole "do your job, treat people right, give all that effort, have an all in attitude" came from. It came from watching the work that the guys were doing every single day across all 3 shifts, and we were in a really unique and really special environment. I mean, not everybody, was super into it and everything, but everybody had a pretty positive attitude and was excited about the job. Um, and we all just got along really fetchingly. I had a really young crew. I was a young, excited captain, and all we did was go out and train, and it was a lot of fun. And I learned a lot uh, from observing the work ethic of the people that I was fortunate enough to work with early on as a captain, and that's where that wording came from. And that's um, I guess prior to that, though, the blog itself came from when I was trying to get promoted to company officer, and I was very frustrated with myself and started writing because um, after I'd failed my first captain's test, when I was studying for it and still trying to, push ideas and not doing it in the right way, not being super successful with it. One of my captains actually said to me, he goes, "Dude, if you ever want to get promoted, you need to disappear."
Hmm.
And I said, "What?" And I actually wrote a blog about it called Disappear. It's on Fully Involved. I wrote it like probably 20 years ago now or something like that. But it's called Disappear. And he said, if you ever want, they won't promote you if you keep trying to push all these ideas. They want people that just
Mm.
fall in line and are not, they don't want you, you don't want to be the fastest, you don't want to be the slowest, you want to be right in the
Yeah.
middle. And so basically what I did was it really pissed me off and it really made me pretty bitter and sour. And so what I would do is I'd come in the morning and we'd do our rig checks and do all the stuff, station duties and things like that. And then if we didn't have anything going on, I was at our headquarters station where we had a truck, an engine, and a battalion chief, and so was our training center. It was really busy, so I had a lot of opportunities to interact with a lot of people. And he goes, "Dude, you need to just go to your room and lock the door
Hmm.
and study." I went, "Okay." So into my room and I studied, and when I wasn't studying, I was writing about how pissed off I was about the fact that, I had all these ideas that were sort of, I felt burning inside of me, and I wanted to share them with people that, things that I'd learned and things that I was excited about the job. And I was told to just basically shut up and disappear and study. And
Hmm.
that's where the writing came from. That's where the blog actually started, was when I was in my room and I had my computer and I would just sit there and type and just that was where all the vitriol, all the stuff came from when I was so mad about it. And then, guys on my crew would come and check on me. My driver, Matt, would come and like open the door and be like, "Hey, you okay?" I'm like, "Dude," I'm like, "I'm just pissed." And but then, fast forward to actually getting through that process and working through some of that anger and working through some of the early um, social media stuff. I mean, we didn't have like a social media policy, and in a sort of a misguided way, I thought I was um, shining a good light on our department, and in some ways I wasn't. And you know, got in trouble for some of it, and then worked through that and found a way to
So,
sort
were you
of
getting in trouble for your blog, or were you getting in trouble for like posting like quotes and anything else?
not quotes. I mean, nothing that was like in terms of like, the big four or excellence is my
Hmm.
responsibility or anything like that. None of that stuff. That we didn't get any blowback on that. But there would be things where, I would be upset with policy or the way that we were being treated, or I felt, or things like that, where I would include those things in the blog, and I would have pictures of the department. A lot of it
Mm.
was where I would have pictures of us training and things like that, where it was like, I thought it was positive, where I was talking about teamwork and leadership and posting pictures of us training. Well, we didn't have a policy on it at that point. And uh, later on, there would be a policy created, which retroactively they enforce, and it was fair. I mean, if there's a policy in place, and I'm using department images, I get it. And so what they wanted me to do was go through and basically scrub the blog of all pictures and things like
Mm.
that, which was fine. Um, but I have no idea where we were going with this. Where was I going? How did
You're
Fully Involved
writing,
start?
yeah, fully
Yeah.
involved.
Yeah, so that's kinda how it started. That was a little bit of a messy, circuitous, explanation for how it started, but it started out of frustration, 1 with myself, and 2 with the department and where I felt I fit into our department, and not feeling like I had a voice, and I felt like I had something that I wanted to say. and then working through that frustration, and then finally, putting in the work and getting promoted. I studied incessantly, and I was a maniac about it. And um, on that list, we promoted 16 company officers, and I studied, like I said, like crazy. And I finished in the middle of the pack. I came in number 7. I mean, as much as I studied, I should have come out number 1, but I'm not that guy. I'm just not a great
Yeah.
test taker. I get bored and I forget what I'm doing sometimes. And so, anyway, uh, but yeah, that's where it came from, was trying to work through some of those things. And then the inspiration for a lot of it was the people that I worked with early on. And they inspired me to come up with the words that would become the big 4. And then the idea for excellence is my responsibility, came from, watching how seriously they took their job and how excited they were for it.
Yeah, and obviously it's just it's I feel like it's kind of blown up from there. It's you see the stickers everywhere, you see the quotes everywhere. You show pictures of people having them on the steps of their firehouse, or they're on, it's above the wall when they're walking out into the bay, and it resonates with a lot of people around the country. And I think it's just a great message, and um because we feel it and we understand it. And what I love that you just talked about, it came from something that was a struggle with you, and it was a burning desire. And if I feel that because I've had that same issue, like when I was dealing with all my stuff in my previous department, I didn't know I really had any writing in me. I'd always journal, but I didn't really, the same thing. I didn't type away. I was always writing my book, and just really about my feelings, about things that were going on in life. And then once I left that department, that's when that creative flow just happened. And all of a sudden, like, oh my God, I got all this in me, and I can talk about it now, and I can post it. And, it's a great feeling to be able to take things that have been bothering you and be able to put them in writing. And for others to resonate, that like what you have to say means a lot to a lot of people. And I was just actually looking up, and one of the things I was looking at is keep your fire alive, but don't burn yourself down with it. And that was a great quote right there. And because again, it resonates with a lot of people. Like, I
Who
get it.
said
Like,
that?
it was you.
I said that?
You
Did
said
I say that?
that.
Oh, all
Yeah.
right. Okay. Well,
Yeah.
it's true. I mean,
But
you
it
know what I mean?
resonates.
But we are guilty of it, right? I mean, we will fight and burn ourselves down with that stuff. And the other thing that I failed to mention, in terms of how fully involved kind of got going, was it was these ideas that I had, and then the people that I worked with, and it was like this perfect situation. But then when I was writing, somehow, and I don't know how, dry brush came across some of it, and I that was how we met, somehow through writing. I can't remember how, but I had help. I mean, there were people that believed in me, that heard what I had to say, who believed in it and moved it, and thought that it had some value. And, I had a lot of help along the way. I mean, Brian pushed some of it out, and he had a guy who he was friends with named Brett Flights, who's in Virginia, and he ran a blog called The Fire Critic years and years and years ago. I don't know if you remember that, but it's not around anymore. But he would pick fire service blogs, and he would kind of pluck stuff out, and he would have like what he called, I don't know what he called it, but he had like a lineup where he would have like his best picks of the week or something like that.
Mm,
And he would, and my stuff got on there a couple of times, and that's how it started to grow. And so that's why when I meet people that come up to me like, oh, hey, I've something I want to share. Can I share it with you? And I'm like, yeah, I'll read it. And I'll, God, this is really good. This person's excited. They're passionate. They're hungry. And you try to move things on, because people helped me with that stuff. And I think that it's important that now that we have a platform to help people out, we should enable people. And because there's our time's going to come and go, right? I mean, our time is now, and who knows how long it's going to last. The future is in the people that see, you know um today's culture is yesterday's subculture, is something
yeah.
that Brian used to say to me all the time, Brush. And you can see it now. I mean, you can see, like, a lot of the things that we were kicking and screaming about 20 years ago, putting the civilians first and civilian rescue is important, and fighting fire is important, and all that. That's all the stuff that's in the fore now, because people are in positions where they can influence that, and so that's what's happening now, and pretty soon it'll be something else.
Oh,
But
absolutely. I
but
love though that leadership though and culture, and honestly, now people I feel they're less scared to speak up and step up when things are wrong and things are bad. It's still I think people are still struggling with it, but I think it's gotten better. And because of people like you and people that are out there spreading awareness and letting people know, like, it's okay to love the job, but it's okay to step up and be a brother or a sister to people who are needing to hear the tough words or the support. And I think before it was kind of taboo to speak up and talk about these things we talk about now. But because people are actually writing and talking about it on these platforms, it's become easier for people to go like, you know what, they're right. Like I'm either suffering, I'm struggling, and now I can actually, I should speak up and talk about some things that are a problem. Not bitching per se, but when things are actually wrong and they're seeing something that's not going right, that they can see like, there is good people out there that are trying to lead me to a direction where I don't have to be so negative all the time. And that's why
right.
I love your presentation because the way you give it, it's not one, it's not dry. You have a great way of delivering it where you have a lot of you make it very you have a lot of humor in it, and you make light of a lot of things, but you have a great point to it. And I think that's why everyone, like for me, and I could tell from the room when I was at your class, is that people were zeroed in onto you because you were engaging, but you didn't have to that's what I'm looking for, man. You didn't have to make it so boring, but you made it where people could relate to you. And I love that you were able to calmly explain things, include the humor, but you made it for us to understand it's happening right now in our era.
Yeah, well, I think that thank you. I appreciate it. But I think it's, I'm sort of a frustrated stand-up comic, I guess. I don't know. But no, I think that you have to make it relatable. I mean, you can't you have to be that person that says, "Hey, I made these mistakes. Hey, I learned from them. Hey, I'm just like you."
Hmm.
I I have the same insecurities. I have the same anxieties. I share the same frustrations, but let's figure out a way to work through these things together. And I think the thing that's important to note too is as much progress as we've made in terms of, like, say, for example, firefighter rescue survey, which I think is probably the most amazing thing that's going on in the fire service right now. I mean, all the stuff that's going on with that, and the research that's going on, and what we're learning, and how much the job is developing. I think that as much progress as we've made in that area, I think we made just as much, if not more, progress over the last 15 years in leadership. And I think that more and more places that I go, sometimes I'll share some of these stories and some of these frustrations, and a lot of the newer people that are sitting in the classes are like, "I I didn't experience that,"
Hmm.
and I haven't experienced that because in our organization, it's working. Like, leadership is
Exactly.
working, and we're doing the right things. And I think that there's so much more of that than we're willing to acknowledge. I mean, I think that there's so many great things that departments are doing out there. I mean, it's not going to be perfect everywhere, but there's a lot
No.
of really good
Yeah.
things going on out there. You know what I mean? And so
Yeah.
I think that that's, like when we're doing that class, Candy Ashby, Ben Martin, and I are doing that three-headed monster leadership class that we're doing, which is a lot of fun because we kind of we're finding our equilibrium and being able to play off of each other pretty well now. But some of the things that we are sharing in terms of the obstacles that we ran into, like, there were entire departments that were at a class that we had in Ohio were like, "Oh, we we're hitting on all the cylinders and we're killing it right now, and we really feel very fortunate to be here, and we haven't we experienced bad leadership, but now we've come out of it, and now that we know what it looks like on the other side, we are just, you know, it's just awesome." And it's great to see that, where people get it. What you have to guard against at that point, though, is when things are working, you have to figure out, okay, why is it working?
Hmm.
And make sure that you're returning to the basics all the time. Make sure
Yeah.
that we're revisiting those things. Why is the culture working? Okay, how do we keep it working? And because when you don't do those things, when you just let the culture sort of start to fall apart and think that it takes care of itself, culture requires maintenance just like everything else does. Just like you check out your rig every single day, you got to check on your culture every single day. You got to remind yourself of who you said you'd always be. Otherwise, you start to selfishness starts to creep in, and we start to forget how we got to where we are. So that's one of the things that I would guard against in terms of like when your culture is working, make sure that you don't get complacent and make sure that you're revisiting those boring basics every single day. Like I say, do your job, treat people right, give all effort, have an all in
Yeah.
attitude. Make sure that we're living those things every single day. Because when we don't, that's when the disease of me starts to creep in and selfishness can creep in.
Oh,
So
100%. And to hit on that too is like it's great that people are also not having those issues. Like you said, leadership is doing something right. And there's a lot of that going on. And the key thing I see too is that we don't need to go looking for the bad things either. I think because I hate to hit on social media again, but like we see some of the, we talk a lot about the bad things in life. That's why I try to say, hey, we got good shit going on too. But we focus on the bad, people start looking for the bad, even though they have it really good. Right. So like, don't focus on some of the minor stuff that's just literally minor things and you blow it out of proportion. And now you're like, yeah, I got a bad culture. But do you really? Is it like, think about the good things you got? And are you just focusing on the minor stuff just because somebody else is talking about all the bad shit's going on? You want to be able to relate to them. If you're not
well, I think
experiencing bad stuff, then that's awesome. Don't focus on things to try to make things bad.
right. We see what we want to see, right? I
Yeah.
mean, that's what you're saying. And I also think that when I was frustrated with the culture in our department, one of the things that I look back on is, how did I contribute to that? How was I how was I part of the problem?
Hmm.
Was I doing something to make it better, or was I doing something to make it worse? Was I that person who was just pointing out, hey, this isn't working, but did
Yeah.
I have a solution for it? What's how are we going to fix it?
Oh
So
yeah, so
I
that's a
think we have
huge,
to.
such a huge key mark for sure. Is that reflection of because like for me, I was an asshole when I was in my previous department. I fully acknowledge that I was a prick, and
Mhm.
some of the people that were new coming into my department, they had the worst version of me, and now that they're left with that bad taste of the bad version of Mike. And it sucks when you leave on a bitter note when that's all they know of you is as a bad person.
Right. Yeah. I mean, you you're never going to have 100% buy-in from everybody, but you definitely don't want to leave where people just you know only remember the bad things about you. I mean,
Hmm.
it's like you and hopefully that's mellowed. But I mean, I think that there's for me it's been time and distance and you know maturing and reflecting on my career and seeing hey, I was a part of the problem
Yeah.
sometimes, and luckily I was able to salvage some things with the help of some other people, to build something that works. And now it's something that people are using as a model for you know how to build culture, and we can help them do that. But it came, like I said, it came from a place of much, 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 much frustration. I mean, just like to the point where you know I was questioning whether or not I was even in the right job. Is this for me? Do I really want to do this? Should I think about doing something else? Do I need to go back to school? That kind of thing. But you know, um, stuck it out. You know, but like I said, a lot of help along the way. A lot of people, putting oars in the water and
Yeah.
helping to row and that kind of thing. So
Now you hit on what you're doing now. You got the trifecta going on. Um, are you guys on? I hate to, it's gonna sound funny on tour now, but like, are you guys hitting the road? You, Candace, and Ben, are you guys doing it actively now and teaching these classes? Because that's an amazing class. That sounds like. I've got to meet Candace numerous times and hear her lectures, and man, she's a spitfire, and it's cool what she lays down, and having all of you guys together is got to be an amazing thing to witness and to hear.
it's great. I mean, I think what's really neat about working with both Ben and Candy is everybody's got it's three different takes on leadership, and we're all on the surface, it seems like we're all kind of saying the same things, but we're saying it's a similar message, but it's delivered in 3 very distinctly different ways.
Hmm.
Ben's very academic, he's a very deep thinker. Candy's very, like you said, a spitfire, and, she shoots from the hip, man. She just zings it. And, there's there's some things we're working on as a group, we all have things that we can work on. I love them both. They're both great people, and I'm just glad that, it was Candy's idea to bring us together.
Nice.
She said, "Hey, I'd like to get you guys together and do a class," and so, um, and so Ben and I have been rooming together, when we hit the road and stuff, and Ben's mind is always going, man. There's been more than a few times. We're on different time schedules because he's an East Coast guy and I'm a West Coast guy. And I mean, it's been more than a few times where we're together and I'll hear him up, clamoring around in the hotel room, and I go, "What are you doing?" Half asleep. I go, "Oh man, I got an idea. I got to go write." And so he'll take his computer and go down to the lobby at like 3 o'clock in the morning. I'm just down there writing, and like he's come up with ideas for different iterations for how we're going to deliver the class and stuff, and he'll hand them to us at, if class starts at 8, he'll be like, "All right, pregame meeting at 7:15," and he's handing out, what we're going to do for the class and that kind of thing. So it's been cool. They're Ben's a grinder, man. He's an up all night, burning the candle at both ends guy, and always thinking, and a deep thinker, and you know, I'm somewhere in the middle, and Candy's kind of just fly by the seat of your pants. Let's go. Let's just do it. And so
Yeah,
it's cool. It's been fun.
that's amazing. Where are you guys going to be, or do you have anything lined up for people to know about?
We are going. I think so far we've got a couple things lined up for in the future. We're going to Oklahoma City. Brian's apartment, so Midwest City, but we'll be in the Oklahoma City area. July 31st and August 1st. That class I think is almost sold out. And then been talking to a couple different conferences. I think we're on the slate for Lyft coming up in
Nice.
Louisiana. Um, but yeah, it's just starting to kind of gain traction. So we're kind of trying to find our footing as far as that goes. But it's been really cool. I mean, it's interesting because every time I hear both of them speak, I learn new things myself, and it forces me to think in different directions. And it has me wanting to take fully involved in some different directions now too, which is kind of cool. Thinking in different ways, so it's cool. It's great.
Fully
I mean,
involved
anytime
is
you can be around people like that, you're never going to go wrong.
fully
So
involved is evolving.
yeah, it always has. I mean, it's on the surface, it's funny because people will say, "Oh, this is when they've come to my class, like certain people will say, "Oh, this is the same old shit I saw 15 years ago." It's not. It's different, and my perspective has changed, and my whole if you really listen, it's changed. It always evolves. It's always changing. Any
Yeah.
instructor that's worth a shit is going to be updating their stuff a little bit. I mean, some of the stories are going to stay the same, but your perspective changes as you evolve, and you know work your tumble your way through this life. So
Yeah, I mean, I could totally see that now that it's you always gotta, like, play back in your head how your presentation went, how the audience reacted, how to improve, just anything and everything. Just like we're still you're still in the seat, like, how'd that call go? And, could it have been better? What did you miss? What was good? So I mean, I would imagine, like, because you guys have so much passion in it, you're always replaying your last lecture, what you
oh, for
did
sure.
in your head.
We don't read the good evals. We don't read what works. We read, oh, this worked. Well, okay, cool. We'll keep doing that. But we want to read. We want to hear. Like as instructors, we want to hear what didn't work.
Yeah.
What didn't work for you? What made you mad? What do you want to see more of? That's whenever I go to FDIC or something like that. I mean, when we used to get the paper evals, I would all the ones that were high scores, I would just glance at them. But the ones where it was like where I got like a really low mark or something like that, I would sit there and I'd read them and I'd agonize over it. Man, what? So because that's where you want to reach everybody, but you're not going to be able to. But
Yeah.
um, so you want to learn from those things.
Now, for anybody who's ever curious about starting to write, and looking to do something that they're passionate about, like what's some suggestions you have for them? How do you think they can go about starting it?
Well, I'm a little my story is a little bit unique because I actually wrote from a very young age. So,
Hmm.
like when I was in elementary school and stuff, I got sent to just down the street to San Jose State to a young writers conference when I was
Hmm.
in the fifth grade, I think, that kind of thing. So, being artistic and writing and that kind of thing has always been something that's been interesting to me. But as far as writing goes, if you're excited about stuff and you want to share something that's technical and you don't, you're not like a creative writer or anything like that, just write and write something. And if you think you got an idea that you want to share, write it and submit it and, submit it to like, say, fire engineering or something like that. Um, and, uh, they have, editors and stuff like that that will help you with your writing and send it back to you a couple different iterations. And because not all my stuff comes back completely clean and my stuff gets marked up and moved and stuff gets cut out of it and that sort of thing, but they can help you if you have something that you want to say, but just work at it. There's books that you can read on how to write. There's a great book by Stephen King called On Writing, and it
Hmm.
talks about how to write. um, there's a couple different books that I read about how to write that really helped me. But my dad is a huge bibliophile. He's got, I mean, more books than anybody should have. And so I bounce a lot of ideas off of him when I write stuff. I send it to him, and he's really good about editing some of my stuff and for grammar and syntax and that kind of stuff. But yeah, if you're excited, just write and just
Yeah.
just work at it and don't be afraid to write. And writing is a skill and it's a muscle that you have to exercise. And I've gotten really bad at it of late. When I was writing prolifically back when I was pissed off about stuff, when I was writing the blog, it came a lot easier. But now that I'm not
Mhm.
mad and, I'm actually kind of okay with whatever.
Yeah.
I don't write nearly as much. I've got a lot of ideas that things will pop into my head, but I just don't have the discipline that I used to sit down and write like I used to. And I need to get back to that. Keep saying that, but
Yeah, and you're
um,
right there. That's such a huge motivator is the emotion. I think for me, when I start writing, is the emotion of it. When I am
uh-huh,
definitely like feeling something, usually for me, it's when I'm at the gym. That's when I start writing. That's when I start getting like, because usually when I'm at the gym, like the frustrations in life and anger and stuff comes out in the weights. And then all of a
uh-huh.
sudden, when the music hits or the workout's really getting it, I actually stop my workout and I start typing into my phone, into my notes so I don't forget it. And then I go back into my house and I start writing again. That's like, it hits me right then and there. So, or just a
Well,
drive.
there's also, I mean, as you're, talking about your creative process, I mean, there's so many different ways that weren't available to like, me 20 years ago when I started writing or more or whatever it was. ChatGPT or any sort of AI assisted thing. You can have a thought bubble and say, oh, this, and just type it in there and say, expand on this, and
Hmm.
it'll populate something for you. Now, you need to take that and put it into your own words. You shouldn't just submit that. But, I mean, there's tons of writing aids that you can use for
Yeah.
that. You know, so I mean, there's just I mean, you can also there's different software out there. I mean, Ben, if if Ben's going to watch this podcast or listen to it, he's going to be pulling his hair out. But because there's software out there too, where if you just talk and tell a story, it'll use artificial intelligence to, you probably know about this,
Mm,
but it'll take the text of what it'll type it all out for you to organize your thoughts,
yeah.
take out all your audible pauses and punctuate it and organize it in a way that, to me, and Ben and I were talking about this. He said he thinks that that's less of a cheat, less of a hack than using AI. But it's pretty amazing how it'll write like a script for what you
Yeah.
have said. Like we did it for one of our classes, and I was wearing a mic, and he used the software, and it had a whole transcript of what we talked about, and it categorized
Nice.
stuff and logged it into chapters, and it was insane. So there's a lot of stuff out there that could help you if you don't feel like you're like a writer.
Yeah.
So
That's why I use voice text all the time when I'm driving because I can't stop and write on the side of the road. I'll put in voice memos and then I shoot it right into an AI generated to get the pauses, to get all the stutters out of it. And then when I'm able to have downtime, I start retyping it and making sure it's how I want it structured. And like you said, like you don't have it verbatim as an AI generated because if you're trying to submit it, they're going to see it was all AI generated and they'll be like, yeah, you need to write this on your own, not have a computer do it
yeah,
for you.
yeah. Oh, they're big on that too. They don't want. I mean, and the thing that's hard about that too is, I heard somewhere that because of AI, publishing companies are limiting the number of novels that writers can submit to them to 3 novels. Ready? How often do you think the interval is? 3 novels per
I don't know.
week,
Oh,
month,
okay. I'm gonna go per week,
per day.
per day. Wow.
3 novels per day that they can submit. So the thing that's hard with that with AI is while there's a lot of ideas out there circulating, there's not new stuff necessarily coming from it.
Yeah.
And it takes our stories and our insight to add to that. I mean, it's a great tool, but it's only as good as what's out there. And if we don't continue to add to it, it's just gonna it's gonna be the same ideas circulating over and over and over
Yeah.
again. So that's why I'm big on sharing stories and writing your own stories.
My kids hate when I use anything AI. They actually text me and they'll show me if I do like a picture, stop using AI because it's
Hmm.
it's ruined our natural resources. So they get
Yeah.
on a big kick. My kids are pretty smart. Kids out there are actually really smart, by the way. So any of the young ones listening, you guys are wicked smart, by the way, because man, like my kids tell me all the time, I'm like, I didn't know that, and then they show me all the articles and what they learned in school. So at least they're learning something.
Well, that's one of the things too that I was always pleasantly surprised about with some of our rookie firefighters coming in is towards the end of my career is just how we like to make fun of people and say how they're totally unprepared to come into the fire service and everything, but that wasn't necessarily my experience with some of the rookies that I had. I mean, they would come in and when we have probationary training we'd have to accomplish with them, and they'd have a sign-off book that they would have to,
Hmm.
they'd have like it would be a thumb drive, and then they'd have all these sign-offs that they had to do. And so I'd say, okay, what do you want to work on today? And they'd say, okay, SCBA, let's say. I'm like, okay. And so I'm boning up on an SCBA, and I'm like, okay, I got to train them on all this stuff. And they would show up and they'd say, okay, Cap, I'm ready. And they'd come to the office. I'd be all right. And I'd go out on the apparatus floor. They have their SCBA all out there, and they would have memorized their sign-off sheet because they could go find videos and watch
Mm.
videos on how to don the SCBA. I mean, they obviously got all that training in the academy, but they had so much more information and they seemed so much more prepared to teach me about. Like, I was like, okay, I got to teach them about the SCBA. I'm like, no, and they'd be like, no, I'm teaching you. And they would put me through this like master class on you know the MSA, and I'm like, oh, holy shit, this is amazing. And they were so in some cases, they were so well prepared in terms of the academic portion of stuff. Now, they don't necessarily always have the ability to take that and relate it to that. That's where we come in, right? We take that academic skill and we teach them how to walk and chew gum at the same time. That's our
Mm.
job as company officers. But man, I was like, wow, how did you find all this stuff?
That's
Because
awesome.
we'd have to use books. And sometimes if the book wasn't in the station library because some guy took it home and didn't bring it back, I'm like, oh, I gotta go find another book at another station,
Yeah.
something like that. So it's kind of cool how they've. I mean, like you said, the newer people are very very smart.
Oh,
Um,
absolutely. It's a
you can't
great thing
bullshit
to
them.
see. You can't because they'll
Hmm.
find it. Like if
Hmm.
you try bullshit an answer, they're immediately gonna look it up and they're gonna call you out and go, no, you were completely wrong on that one. So I don't know where you found that information. But it is great. I love that there's information, there's knowledge for them. But like you said, it's our job to give them wisdom. They're getting the knowledge, but we still gotta give them the wisdom of it. And that's the
Yeah,
whys behind things. They know the hows, but we're gonna tell them the whys, and that's that wisdom
yeah,
part.
yeah,
So
100%.
man, I appreciate this conversation so much. Man, I could feel like I was ready to go on for another hour here. So, It was a great conversation. I really appreciate you so much, Mark.
Yeah, thanks, man. Thanks for having me on. It was really a lot of fun. I'm glad we put this together because we've been planning this for a really long time, right? Since yesterday, right?
Yeah. Yeah, we like
So
texted. He's like, "Hey, you want to do something? Like, what are you doing tomorrow?" Well, all right, let's do
yeah,
it.
no, it was great. That's the beauty of being retired. So, but yeah, man, thank you for having me. It's great. And, just keep doing what you're doing, man. I love seeing you out there and hitting all those conferences and stuff and getting around and sharing ideas and actually talking to the people that are enjoying the conferences and seeing what their experience is. It's great. So
I love it. It's super fun and very blessed. Like we were talking earlier, it's just been a pure joy being able to talk to the students and talk to instructors. But again, the key is getting the feedback from the students because they're the ones that are going to be paying the money to have these conference happens. If the students don't show up, you don't got nothing. So it's
well, and
great
they're
to
the ones that
keep
are
them
going
engaged.
to be going back to their departments and telling everybody to go, hey, dude, this was awesome. Go check it out. You know what I mean?
Correct.
So and
Yeah.
that's the goal of all of us is to make sure that the end user has a great experience and they walk away from you know uh, our interactions with them having learned something and had a positive experience. So
Yes, sir. Well, this has been a very positive experience, and I can't wait to do this again. It's going to need to happen again because I need to talk to you more. So, thank you so much, Mark. If anybody needs to get a hold of you, how can they do that?
well, I have an email and it's markvonappen@yahoo.com. My name at yahoo.com. And the reason why I laughed is because I have a Yahoo email. And
I was gonna bust your balls about that, but you did it yourself. So
yeah, they said it makes me really old, and I said, well, at least it's not an AOL account. So you can also find me on Instagram at Fully Involved Official. So there's that. So
I still have an AOL account, by the way.
I don't.
I do.
I was that generation that was kind of in between computers, like that whole thing kind of missed a lot of Gen Xers, but
yeah,
and I wasn't really super accepting of it. But anyway, thank you. It was fun.
You're welcome. So, so you can check them out on the socials, Fully Involved on Instagram, on Facebook, and hit him up if you have any questions or you're looking to get more knowledge from Mark. So with that being said, you all stay safe, be well. Here it comes. Mazel tov.
Mazel tov. Yeah, man. Thank you.
You got it.